Tēnā tātou katoa. Tēnā kōrua ko Kirsty I whakarewa tēnei āhuatanga e kawe. Kia tātou kia hui mai tēnei pō. Meredith, sister, you took all the words. No, it's been a privilege too to work with Meredith. Probably a term ago, we looked to each other for some support because we were like 2 terms in, wondering, questioning each other about the difference we could make. And at that point, I encouraged Meredith to stand for Te Marua to become part of the national surge. So great to see you tuahine and still making the change down there in Te Tairāwhiti. Probably just want to go back to the pātai that Koe sent out, just make sure I cover those bases before I yak. But why should you stand? Well, if you're watching this, you're halfway in the door, karema. And something that I asked in all local government, every forum I go, is if you've got 3 big why nots, then you probably need to stand and find out. Yeah. Why can't our community have this? Why is it so hard to do that? And how come access or other issues still aren't being addressed by council? Now, council probably is a place where most of our day-to-day issues are sorted, and then the rest are sorted out down in Wellington. So if you've come up with a, geez, I think that might be me, and you're worried about the skills bundle you need, I think just to add to what Meredith said, if you've got networks, that's probably the first one, because you don't have to know everything. You just have to know people that do know. And by networks, I mean people on school committees, on community committees, on marae committees, on whenua committees. You've all been in a decision-making role. So again, those are all part of your networks. The other one that you can't discount, and you all felt it tonight from Meredith, is passion. Because the process of a local government can be quite tiring, so you got to remind yourself all the time while you're there, keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, because they'll try and talk you down from it. They'll try and say, oh, that's too long, it'll take too hard, it'll take too long, and so much change is involved. Then you just got to go through, I don't know how you do it, but however you convince the rest of your whānau, friends or whatever to join your plan of action, that's what you just have to apply those skills at council. And then the last thing I think, and Meredith's a superstar at it, is communicating. Because, yeah, we get a lot of reading, but at the end of the day, what's the 3 punch points that our people care about? Why is it important? How does it affect me? And what can I do to change it? So, again, long as you're committed to being an avid learner, because there's heaps and heaps of like Meredith said, rhetoric, policy, etc., to get your head around. But there's 2 groups that I think are our champions. And we're quite lucky in Waikato because we've got a third one. We've got the iwi. So iwi has experts and they want to help you be a success in council. But council has some internal experts, and they're not just Māori staff, but the Māori staff can direct you to the friendly staff that are going to say, hey, this is how this issue affects your community, and I really want to support you to get there. That's what I had in my first year. I had people from our staff, from all over Waikato, who just wanted me to be a real success. So they broke it down for me, they wānanga'd with me, they gave me all their own time so that we could be really successful as the first Māori councillors on the Waikato Regional Council. The other one I picked up in Meredith is age a barrier. No, it's your superpower, because essentially it's a whole long day of convincing each other and talking, and there's some age groups that get a bit tired and can only take so much information, and some of the technology is beyond them. Those will not be your problem. If you're young and tech savvy, your problem will be being heard and them the convincing. But again, if you know how to sit with kaumātua and convince them, because when I arrived, I wasn't the youngest councillor, but I was 30 years younger than the majority of councillors. Now I'm a nana now, but I'm still 15 years younger than the majority of the councillors on my council. So age is only a barrier if you see it as one. Everyone wants to be relevant. And noting some of the comments made about rangatahi, you got to remember that if you're in I don't want to get into that generational talk, but if you're 26 to 36, you're the majority of our population. So you have every right to be at the table and give a long-term view. When we're talking about things, plans that are going to be over the next 35 to 20 years, your view is probably more important than some of the dinosaurs sitting with me. And I'll be one of, I don't like Meredith and tend to be one of those dinosaurs. I want to get the crew ready that are going to take my seat and then open the door wide open. The other thing that I just wanted to add, the opportunity at council, other than having a say, is increasing our people's say. So we set up advisories, consultations, engagements, and they don't even know who to talk to. And you as a councillor get to say, hey, have you got to these groups in that area? Because this will be important to them. So you get to direct a lot of traffic. Not only that, when we make big decisions and we have to establish groups to advise us, you can say, hey, what about this view? And I'm proud to say I've been able to do that. The other thing people ask themselves is, what can two do in a group of 14? That's the ratio at my council. Very simply, they don't control the narrative anymore. They can't talk about us if we're in the room. They have to talk with us. Inclusion has to be the norm. Isn't something we have to fight for all the time, though, because they would minimise our voice because there's only two of us. But you just got to be louder and more informed than the rest. And like I said, council staff are some of the superstars that really want to help you. More recently, though, and you might have known, we came up with an episode of my flamboyant chair being caught being racist, and caught being racist quite publicly too at a local government space. So I reached out to Meredith and that network of councillors that have dealt with that in a very formal way in their council, and I took her advice and I took that all the way to my council. And although the muruhara wasn't as public, it should be felt by those that interact with us. Again, we're still nailing our processes in and around that, because racism in itself, and Meredith could speak to this more, isn't in our code of conduct. It's the silent, this is the place they've had privilege in and been the only people at the table, so they don't know how to behave. So that's part of the tiring job, is educating the rest of the council about what's appropriate, what inclusion looks like, making sure they do their treaty education, that you're not the wiki Māori at the table, and that your voice is valid over every kaupapa, not just things with a Māori name. So that's some of the push. I'm really encouraged, though, that these forums have only gotten bigger. Kawe, Kōruako Kirsty. It looks like the interest is even, we're at the right point prior to the next election. Just a couple other points I picked up, because I don't want to cover the same ground as Meredith. She's far too articulate for me to challenge that. And each rohe is a little bit different. There's a little bit, I guess, of a different dynamic of about people's comfort zones, but we need to be the new comfort zone. If council is uncomfortable for us, then it's not inclusive of everybody that's part of our community. And I just don't mean Māori and Pākehā, I mean all the diversity that exists in our community. So there was a time at my regional council where just about everybody owned acreage. They were all farmers. They are now not the majority at our council. We're more diverse than that. But their narrative is strong and organised. And that's probably the group that they will get out and they will vote. So how do we consolidate our votes there, Karema? The first time I stood, I just went around and my catchphrase was, every kazi tell a kazi. Like, it's worth voting. I don't care who you vote for, because I think there were 4 of us in my first time. Just vote. Get that envelope, fill it in, put it in there. Now I would say we're using a lot more social media. A lot more organised. There's a lot more people talking about how to become involved. Protest culture means protest by voting, protest by inclusion, not by sitting there and leaving that orange envelope to go nowhere. The other thing is we can organise. We can organise campaigns that say, hey, that profiles the Māori who are standing, because half of that is the problem. You get that big book of people and you think, jingos, I don't know anyone. And even we only get like a paragraph to tell you what we're about. It doesn't tell you much. So again, support these kaupapa kawe and what the tribe's trying to do, just more knowledge out there of how to be included in the vote. Just some of the work, some of the on a great day, you feel you've really contributed to a community's decision making, and some of those for me is like from supporting some Māori landowners to get their rates for emissions sorted, to getting flood banks mowed for different marae, to making huge policy changes and asking iwi to advise. So you get the full gambit of it, as well as feeding into submissions down to government about how to include our voice more in the actual decision making. I got to submit on the Māori wards. I got to go toe-to-toe with some of the ministers and their questions. I've been able to participate in Te Maruata. When I started Te Maruata, and thank you to Whaia Moira, who represented us for the longest time, and Timothy Bramley, who was our youngest councillor, and then it was me. But we were like at national conference of the 100%, we were less than 2%. At the last national conference, there was, I want to say, 80 Māori there in a room of 400. And just, we're still outnumbered, but our waiata outnumbered all of their kōrero and our stands and the way that we make sense. Everybody heard Meredith, they heard Benita, who you've been lucky to meet, and Baden and everybody else. So we get to create a community of experts in this space. So just know, there's a whole heap of Māori councillors, Māori council staff and other supportive staff that want you to be a success. They want to work with you and for you. Again, our whānau don't know what they want until you tell them what the difference is that you can make. I haven't won on the 1080 argument at my council yet, but I've definitely held it to account and created a policy lens where it's not the first option and where our whānau have to say yes if it's on their whenua. So those are, it's a daily grind, but if you're into a little bit of argy-bargy, if you've ever served on a marae committee or a school board and you know how to get decisions made, then you're ready for local government. That's all I really can say, whānau, because again, I believe that Tuahinet Meredith has said so much and spoken so well into our kōrero. The best steps for us, and I'm really excited about the number of Māori wards there are going to be in our rohe. I'm just really, overwhelmed by it. But if we can all collaborate, again, I've got one more term in me, I reckon, and just to smooth the path for those coming in, and not just the local government, as you know, being a councillor, but on community boards, on māngai roles, we're a force to be reckoned with if we can just get a forum going where we can get advice to and then hold your voice well as our communities going forward. So, it's not for me to convince you. It's you better ask yourself why you're not standing. So, kia ora rā, kawe. Hope that adds to the kete kōrero i te pōnei.